Hey guys, today we're going to look at how to add oil pastels to our ice cream drawings. So at this point, you should have your ice cream drawing all sketched out onto your large piece of paper. Okay, you want to make sure that as you are drawing, you're doing so lightly. You don't want to have any hard outlines here because we don't want those to show through after we have the oil pastels. So draw lightly, erase lines where you can. And you also want to make sure that you're filling in your paper. Okay, your whole paper should be completely covered here with your ice cream. It should cover about 2/3 of it, if not more. And then when you're ready, you can grab your oil pastels. This is so exciting. You guys don't have the same exact oil pastels that I am showing here, but you do have quite a variety when it comes to it. So you can choose what colors you're going to incorporate into your piece. Okay. When I start, I'm actually going to start with the background, and then I'm going to work my way up to the foreground, meaning background all the way up to the ice cream. But let's look at how we can start mixing those colors, what colors to mix in order to get a good effect. So oil pastels are very similar to crayons, where you have your pigment, your color, mixed with a binder, they call it. With crayons, you have it mixed with wax, but with oil pastels, it's just a non-drying oil plus wax. You can draw with them and get some funky lines. You can lay it on its belly to color in larger sections faster. Okay, but what we're going to try to do here is create some different values and start blending oil pastels together to get lights and darks. So I'm going to test this here. I have a good amount of pressure here for my orange. I lightened off a little bit here, but you'll notice it's not really light orange. It's just a little bit of orange on white paper. To really mix and blend to get a light orange, I'm going to take my white oil pastel and go right on top of that. And as I work my way to the right, I'm just letting off the pressure a little bit more. And now you'll notice I have a light orange, right? And it's starting to fade from light to dark. However, let's say I want that orange to get darker. If I keep pushing down here, you notice it's not really any darker. Okay, it's still just orange. So a lot of people think, well, let's just add black, right? Black will make things darker. But watch what happens. Okay, with oil pastels, if I lay down a little layer of my color, put on some black, even if I'm barely pushing down, notice how I just have black. Okay, it doesn't do anything to that orange other than completely kill it. Even if I go back on top and blend with that orange, it's just black, right? It's black on orange. It's not a dark orange. So we want to keep those black oil pastels away. They're not helpful. Instead, let's mix in kind of this purplish red color, right? It's kind of this plummy color. And it's in that same color temperature family as my orange. And orange is a warm color, so is the red, so is yellow. Okay, but this deep plum color is a little bit darker. And if I blend that in with my orange, now notice I'm getting something closer to a darker orange, okay, without killing it like the black does. Let's test a couple other colors. So I'm going to do a little swatch here up above. I'll do another one too. We'll test a couple different colors. And feel free, guys. You guys can use the scrap pieces of paper to mix and kind of figure out what works best. Right now, I'm going to try a blue on top of this. And if you remember anything about your colors, blue and orange are complementary colors, meaning they're opposite of each other on the color wheel. If we mix them too much, we get a brown. Okay, and sometimes we want that, so that's a good thing. But if we just want to deepen up the orange just a little bit, we're going to add a tiny bit of blue, go over it with the orange, and look at that. I have a nice deep orange that has not been killed. Let's try it now with a brown. All right, so I'm going to lay that brown right on top. You'll notice it's not getting quite as dark, but that's okay. Maybe I don't want that. All right, so that's why these test sheets are going to be so helpful for you guys. You can test and see, well, how do I make a blue darker? What can I do? Just start practicing blending your colored pen or your oil pastels on your scrap paper and see what works. All right, you can even think about, what if I want to lighten a color, but I don't want to use white? All right, so let's bring in a yellow. Let's see what happens to this if we put it in our range here. There, now look at that. See, the cool thing about oil pastels, even colored pencils, is when you layer and you blend them together, you're going to get a much more realistic effect. All right, let's get back to our ice cream drawing. Remember before I said we're going to start with our background. And when you guys do this, you're going to think about where your light source would be coming in and hitting your ice cream. When you do that, you can kind of apply that same idea to your background. So for me, I wanted to have my light coming in from the upper right-hand corner. Okay, you guys can decide whatever corner you want or whatever side you want it coming from. But because I'm choosing the upper right hand corner, I'm going to start by shading down here on the bottom left hand side. And when I do it, I'm going to think about adding darker values to this section to really show that the light is coming in from the top right. And as you get further away from that top right, it's going to get darker and darker. Okay, and I'm going to keep that in mind the whole time, even when I get to shading my ice cream. I got to think about making the bottom left-hand side more dark. All right. Now to do this, I'm not just going to stick to the one color for my background. I'm going to start blending multiple colors together. So I chose kind of this purpley pink for my background, and now I'm layering on some deeper purple to really darken up that value, right? I'm going to keep going here. Notice how I'm coloring on the side of my oil pastel, right? I'm coloring on its belly. This will go a lot faster for you. Okay, I'm not worried about blending this too crazy yet. I'm just kind of laying my colors down, and then I'll work on the blending here in a little bit while. You can outline your ice cream if that's easier. Outline it first and then fill in. Whatever technique works best for you. Speeding up a little bit here, I'm going to keep going with my base color here, but as you guys are working, feel free to start mixing in even more colors. You just want to try to stick to colors that are close to it in the color on the color wheel. So I have kind of this pinky purple color, and I'm mixing in some darker purples. I can bring in some reds and some blues here because those are all fairly close. Right, I wouldn't want to start mixing in too much like a green or an orange into this, because then it's going to get kind of muddy. And especially I don't want to mix any black, because that will take right over. Okay, you guys can experiment too. It doesn't have to be like a solid thing of color. You can get funky here if you want to add in some patterns, some designs, do little splotchy things here if you want to. Right, go crazy with it. See what you like. Experiment. Okay, let's fast forward here a little bit. So now I have most of my background filled in with color. You can see I'm going in these circular motions here. I'm not too concerned yet with what this looks like. I'm just more concerned with getting the right colors layered on there. I'm keeping this upper right hand corner lighter, so I'm mixing in some white because that's where I want my light source to be coming from. So I'm just going to keep mixing this in. Then when I think I'm ready, layering on my colors, I'm going to start blending. So I simply take a paper towel. Okay, I'm going to scrunch it up a little tiny bit, and I'm going to go through these little circular motions to start to blend all of those layers together. Okay, some people like to use their fingers, and you could, but it gets really messy and gets kind of gross after a while. And I find it just doesn't blend as nicely as a simple paper towel. So you're going to go along your edges, mix everything in here, nice circular motions. And when you are done, you should have a nicely blended background. Okay, again, thinking about where your light's coming from and how that affects your whole paper, light to dark, right? Again, be fun with this, do some experiments here, test and see if you can do some funky little patterns or textures. But when you're ready, you're going to move on to your ice cream, okay? And I'm actually going to start here at the bottom with my cup and then work my way up to the ice cream and to the syrup and whipped cream and the cherry. The bottom here, my cup, I wanted this to be kind of a metalish looking cup. Okay, you can choose whatever color you want, but I'm going to start by doing kind of this base layer of gray. And then where I want things to be a little bit lighter, I'll be putting in my white. Where I want things to be a little bit darker, I'll be putting in a deeper blue. But I like this lighter blue here too, just to give it a little bit more rather than just being gray and then dark and light gray. I'm mixing in a little bit of light blue for some extra flair. And then again, thinking, all right, light source is coming in from the top right. So this left side is going to not get as much of that light. So this is where I'm going to start to mix in some of my darker values. All right, so I'm taking this nice slate blue here. I'm thinking, okay, well, this part would cast a shadow underneath this. So I'm going to give this a little bit of a cast shadow here. All right, I can then add in my little highlight here with my white. All right, I like that. I can go back in with a gray if I want to start mixing it together, or adding a little bit more blue. All right, just think about creating all those values there so you're showing that it's a three-dimensional object. It's not just flat gray. You have a dark side, you have a light side to it to make it look three-dimensional. Speeding up the process a little bit more again. Remember, we want to focus on layering up our colors. Okay, so not just sticking to the one color, thinking about your darks and lights, trying to keep that light source consistent. It's going to be a little bit difficult. This is challenging because you guys aren't working from a photograph. You have to kind of imagine, where would my lights be, where would my darks be? You know, especially on this rounded surface like a bowl. Like, what would that look like? And for one huge final fast forward here, we have the finished product. So you can see I have layered up my oil pastels here. I've put in my light highlights here and my shadows, keeping them consistent with the light source up on the top right. Okay, when I was finished kind of putting all the colors down, I then went through with a paper towel, blending everything out as needed. Remember to stay away from black when you guys are doing your shadows on your areas there. So for something like the whipped cream, I actually just used a gray and a little bit of slate blue, but no black. You guys can also experiment with using colors from your background. So I used this little pinkish purple here to make some of my areas darker, right? And that kind of helps unify the whole thing. But I hope you guys have fun with this, and I cannot wait to see what you guys create.